Brook Forest Voices presents the unabridged recording of A Voice from the Grave by Yvonne Mason, performed by Diana Andrade. Forward. During the Civil War, there were many prisoner-of-war camps in the North and South. The one in Andersonville, Georgia, has been considered by most historians as the worst of the war. Sherman had begun his march to the sea. The rail lines which ran north and south had been completely cut off from the south by the northern armies. Food, clothing, and medical supplies were in short supply, and in most instances, non-existent. The farms in the south had been destroyed and the livestock killed off by the northern armies. The south was falling into ruin. The generals for the Southern Army needed a place to move the northern prisoners, which were being captured during the battles in Virginia, and Andersonville seemed like the most likely place. The town of Anderson Station was located at the end of the Southwestern Railroad line and far away from the battles that were raging in Virginia. Other sites had been looked at but were deemed unsuitable. The construction of the camp began in January of 1864, using timber from the land. The camp was far from finished, as no barracks or sanitary facilities had been constructed when the first trainloads of prisoners began arriving on a cold, wet day in February 1864. This was the beginning of the end of the camp. The conditions only got worse as more prisoners were brought to Andersonville. They not only suffered, the people in the town suffered. The guards in the prison suffered. There was death, illness, and destruction of human life all around. This book, though fiction, brings these things close to home. The battles happened. The prison camp happened. And some of the instances happened.
Chapter 1, 2009, Present-day Andersonville. The Decision. The day began like any other hot, humid summer day in South Georgia. By noon the sun was so hot the red Georgia clay was like a brick. Jonas Biggs, who had been contracted for this dig by the local historical society of the city of Andersonville, Georgia, was a tall drink of water, standing 6 feet tall in his socks, with dark eyes that seemed to always have a hint of hidden humor in them. His hair was still thick and black, even though he had slivers of gray at the temple. Although in his early 60s, he acted like he was in his 40s. He had been doing digs for most of his adult life, and today was the first day of the dig at Andersonville. However, there was no humor in those dark eyes as he bent over into a trench with sweat running in rivers down his lean back and his furrowed brow. Trying to work through the red clay was like trying to shovel bricks. The earth refused to budge. The clay was so hard, one could have cut it and used it to build a house. Frustrated, he wiped his brow with the back of his hand and sat back on his feet. It was going to be the slowest dig he had ever done. It was a good thing he was a patient man. This dig was going to be enough to try the patience of Job. Reaching for his canteen, he unscrewed the cap and took a large swallow. It felt good sliding down his dry and dirt-covered throat. Ah, the nectar of the gods, he thought as he covered the canteen with his cap. How did the ones who survived manage without the basic element of water? As he looked around, he thought about growing up here as a child. The camp had always intrigued him. He had heard stories from his family, and he had studied it in school. He knew the prisoner of war camp had killed over 25,000 Union soldiers between 1864 and 1865. But he had always wanted to know more. He left.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?